Welcome to the Zen Post of the Week podcast, unedited and unrefined, where we talk about a Zen Reddit post of practical or academic interest. There are about 1,000 years of Zen historical records created by Zen Masters in the Zen tradition. I don't have any idea what we're going to talk about today. I just got the link and I didn't even look at it. So our guest will introduce themselves and tell us why they picked this post.
Okay, then it's a good thing I picked this one. So the post I picked is a post you wrote, chan, chan, chan. And it's called Zen's Big Questions. It says, these are all super famous, important questions that Zen masters have either raised, answered, or both. Can you put the names of Zen masters to any of them? And the questions are, what is the highest of holy truths? Why did Bodhidharma cross over from India to China? What does it mean to be a Buddha? What is good? What should we seek? What should we practice? How can Zen masters save sentient beings? What did Siddhartha Gautama do for others? What is the nature of the self? How should I conduct myself? There are people who come to this forum who can't read and write at a high school level, but they are convinced that some religious authority or other is the answer to these questions. But they can't say how. There are people who come to this forum that want us to stop talking about this stuff, the books, or want us to only talk about them using church rules. Oh, fuck you. Sorry, that's my cat. He's very tiny and he's crazy and has very sharp nails. So he sometimes surprised me. Yes.
He's crazy.
But nowhere outside of Zen do we see the heads of community going directly to ordinary people to discuss these questions themselves. In public, without ceremony, in spontaneous teachings, not only that, but these spontaneous teachings express an interest in and study. Not only that, but these spontaneous teachings express an interest in and study of the history of the Zen lineage. Again and again, it comes down to big questions and how they are handled. It's okay not to ask them, but lying about who has answered just proved there is no conversation where that person is from. I think so. The reason I picked this post is because I really like questions, and I think it's I don't think the point of Zen study is to, I don't know, just ask yourself questions, right? But I don't think one can have any kind of self examination or self inquiry without questions, right? So I guess I'm thinking about this post because it's interesting to me how okay, I made a post about Fayan's first admonition, which I mean I really thought it was going to be very uncontroversial because it's literally the guy telling everybody, hey, if you're not enlightened, don't try to be a teacher. Right? Like it's pretty straightforward. And I thought, like, I mean, surely no one's going to have a problem with this, right? But I was wrong. And the problem people had, I mean, it's funny. Okay, so because I thought nobody was going to have a problem with it, I tried to let's say twist the knife a little bit, right, with what Fayon was saying, but just like I was literally just grabbing what he was saying and just freshening it up, right? Like, I think there's certain people that struggle to make the material that they're reading relevant to themselves and their circumstances. So I just try to make it a little bit more relevant to the shared experience that is the Zen forum. So I did that, and funny enough, the the big complaint that I got was that I was trying to pass myself off as a teacher by, I think I should have started with that post actually, because the complaint is really funny to me. They said to me that what they were hearing me say was, and this is a direct quote. Others suck, but since I at least have a bit of real understanding, it is my solemn duty to point out their sickness. After I have no, don't do that. No. Okay. Window is closed now. Sorry. After I have pointed it out, then we, the ones who don't suck, can gather and gossip around the fact of their sucking and us not sucking. And blah 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 about us and them, and I think it's interesting because, well, there are so many things happening there. Because so the first thing I hear when that happens, because this happens also when I mention how you have to be honest in order to have a conversation. Otherwise, there is no point to having conversations with you. People get really mad about that, and I think it's funny that, like, by drawing a line in the sand, no matter how like, and I think that also has to do with the precepts, right? You just launched your book, non-book, which I have a complaint about that, but okay, I'll leave it for another time. Like, if someone lands a draw in the sand and it's like, well, here in this part we don't murder or lie or steal or be rapist or whatever the other one is,
Drinking.
right, or be intoxicated, like, why is the discussion about how everybody should be able to be part, like, do people really want to hang out with murderers and liars and rapists and people with substance dependence? I don't get that. And I think it's the same thing when you draw a line in the sand and say, well, if you're not going to be honest with me, then I don't really see a point with having a conversation with you. I don't understand why people are so quick to jump at the defense of those poor little liars that can't come into the conversation, and how I'm not respecting their way of life, of not being dishonest. Or I think the actual complaint is something like, why do you care so much about honesty? Why are you so intent on gatekeeping? And I think that okay, we're slowly going towards the thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, this is good. Because it seems to me like people have this idea of what the Zen Masters did and what they should do. So I think one of the big ones, and I think you say something similar, but I don't think it's the same. And I want to hear what you think, because I think they think that because Zen Masters were open for questioning, that everybody who wants to be study Zen has to be has to interact with everybody, no matter the topicality of their interactions, no matter how rude they are, no matter how uh, wasteful the conversation is, or no matter how no matter how little they want to have those conversations. And I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think so. Somebody asked me a question the other day, and I was like, I mean, I don't care about that question. And they said, and you claim to be a Zen student. Zen Masters answer all questions. And I mean, do they? Is that really the underlying rule, that they have to answer all of the questions? Is that what makes them a Zen master?
Well, there's the so you've just thrown all the cards into the air, and so it's like I'm trying to pick out, like, okay, you want to talk about this one? Happy birthday from your grandmother. Do you want to talk about this one? I don't. I don't know why anybody would think I'm not interested in that question wasn't an answer. It's an answer. The question's been answered. They don't have to like it. You answered their question. You said, I'm not interested in that question. Now, if they want to make some hay, which is the old expression, or spin some flax into gold, which is the even older expression, they're going to have to show how you not being interested in that question is somehow in conflict with what Zen masters are interested in, and they're not going to do that. That's my guess.
That would have been a great response. Yeah, I would have liked like that.
But if we rewind a little bit, I think that the people who don't want to keep the precepts, don't want to do AMAs, don't want to talk about the Zen textual record, I think they come to this forum because they are not happy about who they are, and they think if they can make friends with other people who are not happy, it will be okay. And that's why we get a lot of off-topic questions. That's why we get a lot of trolling and, religious spam. There are religious forums that they could go and post in, but they don't want to do that. They want to ruin the Zen forum for everybody else. And the reason that they do is because they don't like Zen, but they also don't like themselves. So when you say to them, if you can't keep the precepts, I'm not really interested in talking to you, what you're really saying to them is, look, I know that you're a loser at life, and you know it. So why are we having a conversation? I mean, maybe, you could do some work on yourself and come back. And that's infuriating to them, the idea that they should have to do any work at all on themselves, right? Because they are where they are in their non-precept keeping lives because they worked to get there. And if they want to not be there, they'll have to work to get out. And they don't want to say, I want to get out, right? They want to say, everything that I'm doing is good and valuable because I say it is. So anybody that says no and doesn't look like that's true is a target.
I think that's also why they like digging up these quotes where Zen masters are like, everything is it, or I don't know, Zen is, I don't even remember the quotes they use, but all of them sound like you don't have to do anything different because everything is it. And they really, really like those quotes, because I think part of what they want Zen to be, or part of the way they want to ruin Zen for others, is by making it into something that, well, first of all, yes, where you don't have to do anything to self-examine, or ask any tough questions of you, of yourself. But also because in doing that, you are implicitly ignoring all of the ways, like all of the other part of the historical record, which is Zen Masters urging people to put in the work, Zen Masters telling people that the work they've done is not enough. And I think it's I think that's why the discussion of the relevancy of the Friday night poetry slam is a very good conversation to have, because it does seem like and it's very funny because they started doing like they putting at, I think, a case from the woman one, but none of the poetry is responding to that. Like,
right. No, well, see, this is the long story short is a troll started doing the poetry so that he would have a way to topic slide the forum. And eventually I started complaining that the poems were always off topic. So they started to argue, well, that they would have a topic. But then they just ignore the topic. So what we do is we wait a little while and then we point out to the mod team, they're really not really, they don't care. The topic is just cover. They're not really following the topic. And then the mod team will re-examine the issue. But, you know, the entire movement was, let's create our own thing and call it Zen rather than talk about Zen Masters. And I think that's, I mean, you started with the big questions, but you haven't told me what your question is about the big questions. But I think the big questions are really, really hard for people who are in the three categories: New Agers, Buddhists, and Zazen people. The big questions are just really hard for them, and they're scary, and they don't like questions generally, and they really don't like these questions. And I think that that's one of the important issues, is that there are people that just don't like questions. They don't want to have a conversation. They want hierarchies and sermons, and they just can't handle anything else. So even having a forum where we say, hey, let's have a conversation about questions is just, it's offensive to them, I think.
okay, I think I'll pull in the subject a little bit, because yes, I'm a little bit all over the place. Yes, okay. Okay, I think the part that interests me about the big questions is that I think one impulse that I okay, yeah. So I think it's understandable, I think, if misguided, to want to look at questions like these questions, or others related to self inquiry. Like I remember two questions that I liked were what can we know, and how are we supposed to or how should we live our lives, right? But those, I mean, I guess how should I conduct myself, and what should we seek would be the equivalent. And I think it's understandable to want to have like a doctrinal answer for all of those, like someone who is smarter and wiser and more enlightened than you, that comes and gives you the answer, right? And you're just like, okay, now I know what the highest of holy truths is, and what is good, and what I should practice, and all of those things. And I think it's very interesting that the tradition itself tells you things like, I don't remember what Is it in your book? I can't remember. It's so hard to keep all of the reading straight in my head. But there's this quote from this guy who was talking to his assembly, I think, and he says something like that uh, you have to consider the Buddhas your mortal enemies. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
But do you know who the guy is?
No, but I mean, I bet you if I type Terabes quote mortal enemies. Nope.
Well, okay. It's we'll find it. And I think and the other quote was Longias, if I'm not mistaken, where he says that someone asks him if Zen masters obstruct people or deceive people, I think. And he's like, well, rivers are not looking to obstruct people, but they're there. What are you gonna do about it? And it's like this really interesting like those two things play off of each other, right? Like the fact that if you just ignore the Zen masters, then you're not really studying Zen, right? You're doing something else, and that's fine. People can do other stuff. They don't all have to be associated with Zen. But the other part being that the Zen study implies, I mean, if we take those things seriously, the Zen study implies not getting your meal from them, let's say. So it's interesting to me that, like, if those questions that you listed, if they were asked of me, like I can offer two flavors. We can either go with, well, here's how other people have answered them, and we have a long list of people doing that. But then if I like if I want to answer them, then it becomes a matter of um wait so the authority you okay, we're getting there, getting there. Let's so in order to answer them without doing the here's what has been said historically, it seems like you need to okay, based on what do you answer those questions if you don't have the historical record, right? Because the other only thing I can see with those questions in particular is, well, I mean, who decides what to practice or how to conduct yourself or what the nature of yourself is? And I think if uh if if you don't want the answers from the record, then the only authority you can derive that from is yourself, but then you're subject to other people based on their own authority challenging them, right? And then you circle back to, well, who has a reasonable argument, uh, uh, who is in accordance to what the other people have said, even though it's a different answer, and things like that.
I think there's a third option, and that is who wins. And this is why they don't want to play, because they can't win. And we can argue about what it takes to win, but let's just suspend that for a second, because the reality is that these people do not want to AMA. They don't want to write high school book reports. They don't want to have any kind of conversation where it's clear that there's going to be a winner and loser. And Zen's historical record is 1,000 years of there being a winners and there being losers. So from their point of view, it's not about answering from the historical record, and it's not about anybody's opinion. It's about who the winner and who the loser are, right? And you can't pick up a Zen record without there being absolutely clear examples, every single page, of winners and losers. And that's the thing, right? So you could say whatever you want to say if you're prepared for the fact that you could be the loser, and they can't handle it. That's why they refuse to AMA. That's why they block people. That's why they spam religious authority that makes them loser-proof in their minds, because they already know before we even start, they already know they're the loser. And that's a terrible thing. I mean, that is a horrible, horrible thing. But if we look at what Zen Masters teach, Zen Masters teach that if you're the loser, it's your fault. And now they have all the responsibility for being the loser. And they're like, well, what can I do to stop being a loser? And Zen Masters are like, why do you think it's about doing something? It's not about doing something. It's about not being a loser. And they're like, oh, right. I mean, there's just no way out for them, right? They can't conceive of an entrance, so they have no entrance, right? And that's why it's hilarious that Zen Masters are like, no, I hear entrance over there, there's an entrance over there, there's an entrance over there. There's so many entrances, right? Because for them, they're winners all the time, right? So we can go back to that thing of somebody asks you a question, you say, I'm not interested in that. From a winner's perspective, that's the answer. They answered the question. You wanted me to answer it? I answered it. From the loser's perspective, it's no, I didn't get what I wanted from that answer, so it doesn't count. But winners are like, no, you bought a ticket. You spun the wheel. It's time for you to go home. You didn't win anything. That's it. It's over. And this, I mean, the idea that, and it gets really exciting when you acknowledge that Zen masters themselves, who are the most famous winners in human history, they lose too. They lose to each other. And looking at those particular subset of dialogues, Zen masters losing to other Zen masters, is really interesting, right? Because it's much more like great athletes playing a really huge grudge match and not even keeping score.
What's a grudge match?
Oh, famous competitors who their careers have been against each other.
Oh,
yeah.
I think it's really funny that when you were talking about there being winners and losers, because people sometimes go in the comments like, well, but Zen is not about winning and losing.
I mean, that's just a lie. Like, I mean, it's hilarious to me when people come into the forum. Zen doesn't have the precepts. I'm like, can you name one Zen master who didn't keep them before and after enlightenment? No. Well, can you name people who don't keep the precepts outside of that? Yes. Well, looks like those people would be outside of it then, right? But I mean, just like, people lie because they've already lost. That's why they're lying, because they already know they lost.
Like the guy is dead. Dongshen asked him all of the questions, and now he's dead, and there is no winners and no losers in that case. Okay, sure. Okay. So to bring it back a little bit,
To bring it back to somewhere. This isn't a podcast. This is a rant episode. I'm gonna rename it The Rant.
It's just okay. So okay. It seems like when so okay, you said I think if you did the same to me, like the same thing that I'm doing to you of just being all over the place, I would be completely lost probably. Yeah, I just want to let you know that I know it's completely unfair. Not that I'm gonna stop, but you know. Okay, so you were talking about there being winners and losers, and then that losers don't want to answer the questions, and then you know I can't remember what I wanted to say because it was in the middle of what you were saying. So okay, I'll just throw anything out there and see what sticks, because what caught my attention was about when when people want to be part of what the Zen conversation is about, but they're not ready to all right, okay, yeah. But when you talk to anyone, you're putting you're putting yourself like a you're putting a target on yourself, right? Because anybody can come up at any point and ask you questions, and just I don't know, if you're saying something stupid, you're putting yourself out there for people to be like, that's stupid, and telling you why. And maybe they can convince you that what you said was stupid. But I think it's like the same question that's always been there, right? And I mean, I don't know, we have like what's your American thing, after school specials of people telling other people, like grown-ups telling kids or whatever, like, you just gotta be yourself or whatever. And I think that's corny advice, but I think it's basically true, right? Because when you are doing all of those things of having to hide behind doctrine, or having to hide behind planning out your answers and conversations in a really thorough way, because you can't ever predict what everybody's going to say to you. When you have to do all that, I think what you're saying basically is that you don't trust yourself enough to just be like, well, this is what I think, and if I say the dumb thing, then I'll just either. So if someone says I say something dumb, either I'm going to make them convince me, because nobody gets free passes, right? If someone just says what you're saying is dumb,
I love those people,
and they can't explain, and
I love them so much.
And they can't explain to me
when their opener is "you're dumb," I'm like, I got you. I now own the ground you stand on. Oh, thank you for coming to my show.
Because either they explain it, and I'm convinced, or they don't have an answer, and they just get shown the door. Wait, no, are those the only options? I mean, I don't know. Who cares? But that's the thing, right? Like the options you can handle, right? Like there is no issue with any of the answers, right? Like if you're wrong, then
You're wrong.
just wrong.
Yeah, you get to be wrong.
And
Everybody gets to be wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. The problem, right, is what? Is that if you're wrong about this, or you're wrong about something else? Is it wrong all the way down?
But that's what, like, that's a part of how people operate that I don't get. Like, what else are they doing with their time that being wrong is not something to be interested in, right? Like if you're not wrong about stuff, then I mean wait, okay, no, okay, I phrased it incorrectly. If you're not prepared to be wrong about stuff, then what you're putting out there, like it seems like the bubble boy, like the I don't know, there was a movie when I was growing up of a boy that was like germophobic, and so he had to live.
I don't think he was germophobic. I think he was immunodeficient.
Yeah.
Germophobic is you don't like germs.
Yeah.
Immunodeficient is germs will kill you. It's a subtle difference.
I should know that word. Okay. Yeah. So he lived in a bubble, right?
Yeah.
And I think I don't remember how the movie goes, but bubbles are not particularly sturdy, right? So it's not that it's like the bubble is just introspection, and like the things the bubble just protects you against introspection is where I was going with that. And when you put yourself out there with the bubble, which is upholding doctrines and lying and all of these things, you're not really protecting yourself from all the other stuff, which I think is what people are really scared of, right? Like looking stupid, looking dishonest, getting pwned all over the internet.
Age, you're just infirmity, and disease. You're not protecting yourself from those.
Yeah. You're just protecting yourself from asking yourself those tough questions. And I think the frustrating part for me with these conversations, which is why I don't want to have them, is that, I mean, who else is going to study Zen and, I don't know, see their self-nature and become Buddhas or whatever you want to call it, like get enlightened, all of those good stuff? Like, it's, I mean, there has to be people that do that, right? Like, if the people don't step up, then I don't know. I am almost 100% sure that cats are not going to step up because they're already doing their thing. So if people are not doing that, then, like, I mean, it's people who are supposed to be able to do. I mean, not, I don't know. But if anyone can, is people, right?
I mean, the thing that you said that made the most sense to me is that if you're worried about